any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining this webinar today. So folks, without further ado, I am Nathy Gaffney, Nathy G, and I'm so excited actually to share with you some of what I've learned and lived over the past 40 years of being what I call a professional rememberer. So wait, what is that? Well, first, in my first professional career as an actor, lines, moves, scripts, monologues. Then as I moved into singing and dancing, lyrics, dance moves, dance steps. And now as a speaker and a workshop facilitator, more long scripts, content, concepts, frameworks, research, and of course, the focus of today's session, people's names. So join me as we delve into some of the psychology of names, we debunk some common myths around memory, and we equip you with some practical techniques to conquer the art of never forgetting another name. So wherever you come into this, it's time to shift your mindset and discover the transformative impact that remembering names can have on both your personal and professional relationships. Oh, someone's just said hello to me. Oh, hi, great to see you here. Okay, so we've got some more people join the call. Fantastic to see you all here. Let's dive in and have a look at how the adventure is going to play out for the next 45 or so minutes. So what will we be covering in today's webinar? As Simon Sinek says, start with the why, and so we'll do that. Understanding what memory is, the different types of memory, where they're formed in the brain. So we're going to spend some time exploring the neuroscience of memory. The three central elements you require to commit names to memory and also to be able to retrieve them. I'm going to give you some practical techniques, as I said, some interactive exercises that you are welcome to actually take part in while we're on the webinar, and of course, some key takeaways and your secret strategy, which as the session unfolds, you'll kind of tailor. It's a little bit of choose your own adventure with the tools and the approaches that I will share with you today. So let's start. Why is remembering a name important? Why are we bothering with this stuff at all? I mean, surely when we pop up on a Zoom call, our name is there. So why do we bother with trying to remember them? Well, honestly, it simply sets you apart as having paid attention. And in today's attention deficit world, it is simply one of the simplest and easiest ways to stand out from the crowd. And at the heart of why we want to remember people's names, and indeed why we love it when people remember our own names, is connection. It gives us significance. It gives us belonging. It gives us a sense of being seen, being heard, being recognized. And of the thousands of people that I have worked with over the past decade, honestly, about 90% of them admit to or label themselves as being either terrible or a little bit hopeless at remembering names. Now, and there are the rare few who kind of wear it as a badge of honor. You know, when you meet them, they say, "Oh, don't expect me to remember your name." However, when most of us admit this, we're acknowledging up front the discomfort that comes with having to admit that we're likely to forget, and we're apologizing in advance for any offense that will occur. So why do we do that? Well, because at our core, we actually know how important it is. Someone's name, connecting with someone via their name, is the bedrock of creating a meaningful interpersonal connection. So let's start with what is in a name? What is at the heart of what makes names so important? First up, think about it. It is the first gift you receive. Our names are initiated by those who love us most in the world, our parents or our primary carers. It is assigned to us. It's like an identity tag. It singles us out, and it's the aspect that in those early years draws attention to us. The next reason names are so important is that they provide us with significance. You think, post being born, when we're babies, our name is whispered to us, cooed to us, giggled to us, sung to us. And then over the years, it comes back to us through this ever-increasing circle of our siblings, our family members, our friends, our teachers, our peers, our colleagues, our partners, and so on and on it goes. The third element is, as I mentioned before at the setup, is connection. At every stage of our development and across our lives, our name, when said to us, profoundly connects, even if we have a name that we don't like, because over many, many years of repetition, our brain registers that if someone addresses us by our names, they're deserving of or perhaps demanding our attention. But equally, they are paying attention to us. And then the fourth element of why names are so important is this notion of reciprocity. You give me something, I give you something back in return. It's a little bit of human nature, push and pull. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. When you greet someone by their names, the laws of reciprocity determine that you will be greeted politely in return. It's a shared symbiotic relationship, kind of like when you smile at someone and you receive a smile back. So you'll notice when you receive a smile back, but you'll also notice when you don't. I know when I go up and down the stairs to my gym in the mornings, I'm like, morning. And if someone just blanks me, I'm just like, I remember that. That's a no vote from me. So reciprocity, this is very important when you think of how important it is to building relationships. So let's dive now into understanding a little bit of what is under the hood in our brain. So we're going to spend a little bit of time now understanding a little bit about memory, busting some myths, have a look at how memories are formed, etc. So here's the thing. The good thing for you is whether you think you're terrible at remembering names or you're kind of pretty average, the thing to know is this. About only half of our memory capacity is genetically predetermined. So it's like any muscle, you got to use it or lose it. So I want you to remember this. Memory isn't just something that you have, it's something that you do. It's a dedicated, intentional practice. So therefore, most of the time when you forget someone's name, it's not a memory problem, it's actually a focus issue. Okay, and so we also have different types of memory, and we're going to be exploring a couple of them today, but by no means all of them. We have short-term memory, or you might have heard it termed as working memory, which is largely what we're going to be dealing with today in this session. And that's only one of the types of memory. There's also long-term memory, explicit memory, implicit memory, declarative and procedural, episodic, semantic, and selective, which we will also be touching on. We're really going to be kind of using the selective memory and short-term or working memory in today's session. But there's a lot of stuff going on under here. So let's bust a few myths. First thing is memory acts like a video recorder. So this is a bit of a myth. We'd like to think that our memory records accurately events as we see and hear them so that we can review and inspect them later. But memory, in fact, is a creative and highly fallible process, highly prone to suggestion and other distorting influences like distraction, which we're going to explore soon. So another little myth we have about memory is this one. Some people have photographic memories. Now, it's tempting to evoke this ability to explain achievements. There are the celebrated memory champions such as Lu Chao. Now, in 2005, Lu Chao, pretty smart guy, I'm definitely going to give it to him. He set a new world record as recognised by the Guinness World Book of Records by reciting the first 67,890 digits of pi entirely from memory. I don't know, maybe he didn't have anything better to do. But, you know, you do you, Lou. However, studies of memory champions reveal that they depend on memory devices, and we're going to be exploring that and introducing you to some. And here's the thing that you cannot escape: thousands and thousands of hours of practice. Okay, so that's the thing: no photographic memories, devices, and practice. And so whether it's Lou or whether it's you can't escape what you need to improve your memory. And the third little myth we're going to bust this morning is that forgetting occurs gradually. So I found this a really interesting point. So, because some memory misconceptions can have serious consequences. For example, the way eyewitness testimony is treated in court. For example, many people, including a lot of psychologists, believe that forgetting occurs gradually, kind of like as if memories decay like an aging reel of film, and they gradually just break down. But in fact, most forgetting occurs immediately after an event. So this is really important when it comes to meeting people and recalling their names. Most forgetting actually occurs immediately after the event. Okay, so just how is memory formed in the brain? Let's take a little bit of a closer look. So memories are formed in 3 distinct stages. First, it starts with encoding. Okay, now encoding is the way that external stimuli and information make their way into your brain. So this occurs through any of your 5 senses. So what you see, what you smell, what you hear, what you touch or taste. Okay, so that's encoding, how it all goes in. The next stage is storage. And that's where the information that we take in is stored, either briefly, like with sensory or short-term memory, or more permanently, like with long-term memory. So your brain sifts and sorts it and sends it to different regions of the brain, setting it up for the final stage of memory, which is recall. So recall is our ability to retrieve the memory we've made from where it's stored. So these processes are also how sensory memory might be turned into short-term memory, or short-term memory might be turned into long-term memory. So that's a little bit of a highlight on the neuroscience and the actual brain activity of what memory is, what it isn't, and how they are formed in the brain and where they are stored. So if we know how to catch it, we know where to store it and how to retrieve it, why are names in particular so hard to remember? Simply put, often they don't really mean anything. Names, like numbers, are mostly abstract. And in most instances, the name bears little or no resemblance to the person that it's attached to. So take the little guy on the screen, for example. You will recognise him as Charlie Brown, the famous Peanuts character. Now, here's the thing. We all know what the colour brown is. So if Charlie Brown was actually brown, there would be something that we could understand that is tangible and concrete, that we could connect to Charlie, to go Charlie Brown. But Charlie Brown's not brown. Charlie's actually white. Now, unless you used it as a device of opposites, or you focused on his shoes, which are brown, assuming he wears those shoes all the time. But by and large, his name bears no resemblance to who he is, and is therefore giving you no clues, okay? So here's where you can cut yourself a little break, that names aren't designed to be easily retrievable. So this is where we get to go on a little bit of an adventure. So I'm wondering, and you can hit me up in the chat here, does anyone actually remember the 3 Musketeers? So you remember the 3 Musketeers, but does anyone actually remember their names? You can put it in the chat if you're feeling, and no Googling. We'll see if anyone comes up with the names. Oh, Melissa's going, oh, I don't, sad face. And that's okay, Melissa. Not me. Alex, no. No, me neither. Don't remember. Oh, I know, right? So here's the thing, and you'll remember them when I say them. Athos, Porthos, and Aramis. Now, honestly, I didn't remember that either, but the way I chose to associate to never forget it moving forward was this. I did a little bit of association. So I went Athos. I have bought a few things on ASOS, online shopping, over the years. So I was like, okay, ASOS. And then I was like, Porthos. That kind of just sounds like Oporto chicken to me. So Oporto, Porto, Porthos, yep. And Aramis, I remember from the 80s being a cheap men's fragrance. So Athos, Porthos, and Aramis. And of course, there was a fourth musketeer, D'Artagnan. He was perhaps the most famous one, but he wasn't one of the originals. So, and funnily enough, the author of the Three Musketeers made the character of Porthos larger than the others. So he was, in fact, portly. So in that instance, the author was helping us out with the name of Porthos. But of course, we don't necessarily use the term portly when we are talking about people who are overweight in this day and age. So again, hence why over generations, some names just become irrelevant to the person wearing them. Okay, so folks, we are going to use these three lovely gentlemen here today as the Three Musketeers of memory. So we're not going to use Athos, Porthos, and Aramis. I'm going to give them new names. We're going to say Monsieur Motivation, we're going to say Monsieur Focus, and Monsieur Devices, or Motivation, Focus, and Devices. Okay, so these are the Three Musketeers of memory, the three elements that you need to commit names to memory. Now, each one of these elements, motivation, focus, and devices, do sit independently, but working together, they form the sweet spot of really being able to recall names. So let's have a look at how they work. Motivation is all about your why, but motivation plus focus, being present in the moment, gives you the right intention. So that means you're going into a situation where you're going to meet someone with the right intention. Now, focus, being present and giving your attention to the moment, plus devices, the right tools for your toolkit, gives you the right approach. So you're focused, you're ready to show up, know what you've got to do, and you've got the right tools in your toolkit that are going to work for you. That gives you the right approach. And then finally, when you've got the right tools in your toolkit that you know work for you and the way your brain works, and you've got the motivation, you've got your why, what you'll have is the right mindset. Okay, so right intention, right approach, right mindset. And if you use all those things combined, you too can become a name recall ninja. Now, the one thing you cannot get away with is, like any ninja, they have waxed on and waxed off one move 10,000 times. So repetition is absolutely key to being able to recall names. And you don't have to do it out like a parrot. You can do it on the inside, but repetition is key. So let's jump into this adventure and get started. Let's start with motivation. So yeah, like, really, why do I care? Now, you may have heard of one type of memory I talked about before, and that is selective memory. So let's think about that. That's the memory where we often choose to remember based on our individual preferences and our interests. Now, selective memory is really useful for us to help us sift through the vast amount of input we receive every day. But it can also hamper our efforts to remember and recall people's names, especially if we don't have a compelling reason to remember. It's like, I don't know, why should I? So when it comes to motivation, you need gas, okay? Now, I like this image, but the gas I'm talking about here is not the sort of gas that you would need for a road trip across Route 66, although it is similar in that it provides you the fuel to get you going. So what I've done here is I've used gas as an acronym for give a shit, okay? What is your give a shit factor, okay? That's your motivation, because the simple truth is this. Many people don't necessarily give a shit, gas, when they're first introduced. Now, not deliberately, mind you. It's not that we rock up deliberately with the intention of forgetting people's names. It's just that mostly we haven't made the conscious decision in our minds ahead of time to carve out that space in our cognitive nether regions where you and your name will live securely and rent-free for all eternity. Okay, so here's the fun part. When it comes to motivation and finding your gas factor gets to be yours. Simon Sinek calls it his start with the why. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why should I gas about remembering this person's or people's names? Now, no one's going to give you that answer. You have to determine that for yourself. Now, it might be at that school function, you want to get your kid into a specific class next term, so you're motivated to remember the name of the teacher. Or at a salesperson or at a sales conference, you want to win that new client. So you're motivated to really tap in and learn that person's name. Or at Pilates, you might want the spot in front of the class. So you're motivated to remember the instructor's name. I don't know. You choose your own adventure here. The thing about a gas factor, though, and which I love about this, is that it doesn't actually have to be based in reality for it to be effective. So you can tell yourself, for example, every person I meet tonight, if I can remember their name, they will give me $100,000. Now, that's a fun game to play with yourself. And because the brain doesn't register that it's not real, you will automatically be more driven to remember that person's name, assuming you are motivated by money, because it goes back to that selective memory thing. It goes back to the things that we are interested in naturally. Now, so for me, I have accelerated and improved my ability to remember people's names when I'm in workshops because I have a very strong gas factor in that context and in that setting. My why is this. I want to gain people's trust, confidence, and buy-in as soon as is humanly possible. If I'm running a one-day workshop and sometimes I've got less time, I have a really limited window of opportunity to build rapport and trust so that I can get people to a place of willing involvement. And it's also impressive. People notice when you remember their names and they always comment on it. And it gives people a sense of significance and a sense that they matter to me. Now, it's no guarantee, but it makes them far more likely to want to engage with me quickly. Now, full transparency, I'm less effective in big social settings, but that's because my gas factor is much lower. So you ask yourself, what motivates you? Now, are you intrinsically motivated or are you extrinsically motivated? Doesn't matter which, you just got to identify. So do you like setting yourself challenges or do you focus on things in your outer world to help drive your behavior? So for example, at the gym, go back to the gym, there's some people there who work hard 52 weeks of the year because they are intrinsically motivated to keep their fitness and their health and their nutrition under control. Me, I tap into the 12-week body transformation challenge every year because there's a cash prize and I really want to win the money. So in my case, I'm extrinsically motivated. So you think about the situations you find yourself in where you're meeting people, whether it's work, social, partners, extended family for the first time. What is going to be your gas factor and why? So here's the thing. You never know when people are going to come back into your life and in what context. Often there is a really big power in tiny connections. So find your gas factor and remember, it doesn't have to be based in reality. Okay, let's kick into focus facts. Focus, baby, focus. All righty. We're going to start here, the big D, distraction. I don't know about you, but sometimes my entire day feels like a blur. The majority of our waking hours are spent with our brains in hyper alert mode. We're rushing to get up early enough to get to the gym, to get the kids to school, to get to work, to get the report finished, to get to the back-to-back meetings that we've got all day, to get to a networking event, followed by the school function and family dinner, rinse, repeat. And add to that all the other things that can also affect our memory, like poor sleep or the environment. Is it noisy? Are you working from home? Have you got kids and animals tugging on you all day? Have you got poor diet? Yes, that does affect your memory. What about a lack of exercise? And you just don't care, or you actually don't like the person. So there's a lot of stuff going on that can affect your memory. But here's the thing. Most people, they treat the present moment like a transit lounge, okay? So focus is about being present, and it's about being in the moment and removing all the distractions. But we often don't do that. We know where we've come from, we know where we have to get to, but right here and right now, we might have physically stopped, but our brains and more importantly, our nervous systems are still wired, okay? Now, that's environmental and low-key distractions. There can also be another thing that can impact your ability to focus and be present, and that is stress. There are times or situations when stress is elevated beyond normal levels. Can anyone relate to this guy? Like the deer caught in the headlights of a car. Now, so in case of some people, introverts, for example, who can find just the thought of having to engage with multiple people exhausting and overwhelming. Now, you might be new to a job and you're taking in so much. You have to give a presentation at work. You're really worried about it, or you're at an event of some sort where you don't know anyone. You might suffer from socially based anxiety, or you might be neurodivergent in some way, shape, or form. Any of these conditions or situations can elevate your stress levels and put you into survival mode. Now, you will have heard of fight or flight, and it has two other siblings, the survival mode, freeze and fawn. Now, whenever you are in one of these responses, your higher order thinking, meaning your ability to focus, is not in the driver's seat. This response, this survival or threat response, completely overrides our ability to focus on anything other than the perceived threat. So that means you can't take in any non-threat related information, which is why when you are in a highly elevated experience of stress, you can't remember names. So, but I want to be really clear about this. From a nervous system perspective, because you're uncomfortable does not equal danger, okay? So the autonomic nervous system, our nervous system, which is automatic and subconscious, can't tell whether you're in actual danger or whether you're just a bit stressed and uncomfortable. It's just freaking out. It's like it's hijacked the plane, it's taken over the cockpit, you're locked out, and you can't get in, and you can't force your way back into the cockpit and tell them just to chill. So here's what you can do. You need to come back to the present moment. You can't force yourself to focus. You have to de-escalate the situation. So you might have heard of the practice of mindfulness and meditation, the two M's. Well, these are not quite those. This is what I'm going to share with you is what's called a neurosensory exercise, but it is about regulating your autonomic nervous system and bringing it out of survival mode. Okay, and it's really, really simple. So you might have heard, and I invite you to do this with me as I step you through the exercise, and it's quite nice. So you might have heard of the concept of grounding. Now you can see here there's feet, bare feet on grass. So typically when we think of grounding, it's connecting with the earth and getting into the present moment. All of those things are true, but the reality is sometimes you can't go outside, you can't take your shoes off, and you can't just chill and sit under a tree. But you can ground yourself in any situation. I want you to think of grounding as in being supported by gravity. The Earth's gravitational pull will hold you secure. So whatever surface you are sitting on or lying on or standing on at the moment, I want you to take your awareness there. It could be bum on a cushion, back on a chair, feet on the ground, and if your feet are in shoes, just feel them in the shoes and the shoes on the floor. Wherever your body is connecting with the gravitational pull of the earth, go there. That is grounding, and that is quite simply signaling to your autonomic nervous system that you are safe. The earth is holding you. So that's a little bit of an explanation of what grounding actually does to your autonomic nervous system. So that's the first thing to do. Just take your awareness to where you are being supported by the earth's gravitational pull. The next thing is orienting. Now, orienting is something, grounding is something that you can do with your eyes closed. That is a lovely practice. It's what we call interoceptive reflection. Now, orienting is using exteroceptive reflection, which means we use it with our eyes open. And quite simply, you can identify 3 things in your environment that you can see and your eyes can rest on. I like to use something in my near vision, so something quite close to me, something in the mid distance, and if I've got access to a window, something far away. So you've got 3 different fields of vision going on. And again, the purpose of orienting is to signal to your autonomic nervous system that in this time, this place, and this space, you are safe. It can de-escalate the threat. Okay, so orienting, 3 items, 1 close, 1 in the mid distance, 1 in the far distance. Just let your eyes land gently on those 3 things, maybe 2 or 3 times, and that's orienting. Okay, again, with your eyes open, signaling to your autonomic nervous system that in this moment, in this time, you are safe. Third thing, you do this all the time, all day. Slow breaths. Actually, maybe you don't breathe slowly, maybe you're breathing really fast, but essentially slow breaths. We all know how slow breathing helps to regulate the sympathetic nervous system, de-escalate that threat, and to help us get into a more settled, mindful space. So slow breaths you choose. You can do box breathing. You can do 2 sips in and 1 long breath out. You can breathe in through the nose or out through the mouth. Again, choose your own adventure. You breathe all day, every day. You cannot get this wrong. Just slow it down. Now, for a ninja move, what you can then do is try combining all 3. So I'm going to invite you to do that now, just for 30 seconds. So take your awareness to where your body is connecting with the gravity of the earth beneath you, your bum, your feet, your legs, your back. Have a look at those 3 things that you've identified, near, midfield, and far. And think about your bum on the chair. Oh, that feels nice. And then just take your attention to your breath. And back to that sensation of how the earth is holding you up. And back to those things that you're looking at. And back to your breath. And play with that. Now, here's the amazing thing. In just 6 seconds, your threat response will start to subside. I'm not saying that you will go from to completely chill in 6 seconds, but it is 6 seconds only that will activate the reduction of the threat response. Okay. Now, also think about this. If you're in situ, if you're with someone, it might not be appropriate. But if you're thinking about going to an event, or you know you've got a meeting that you're a little bit anxious about, you can do this ahead of time and take yourself off to a quiet spot for a moment, or to the bathroom. Even if you're on a date and you're nervous, take yourself off to the bathroom or the bar and just do those 3 things. It'll take no more than 30 seconds, and it can de-escalate and signal to your autonomic nervous system that you are indeed safe, and it brings your higher order thinking brain back online. Woo! Okay, the third part of our adventure, devices. So I'm going to throw a word up here. You might be familiar with it. Look at that. So when I look at this word, I feel like I'm in an episode of Letters and Numbers with Richard Moorcroft. Some of them probably don't watch that. And I'm supposed to make a really clever word out of these letters that I see on the screen, but I've actually got nothing. So this word is mnemonics. And mnemonics are devices to assist memory. So we're going to have a bit of a play with mnemonics. But even the word mnemonics, I'm like, mnemonics, doesn't make any sense to me. So this is how I remember it. Hello, Nemo. But that's not all. I built on Nemo with knickers. Nemo's knickers, mnemonics. So again, it doesn't matter what you use. I'm outing myself here all over the shop. But the fact is, the sillier and honestly more absurd or more out there something is, the likelier your brain will reach out and grab onto it and hold tight. Our brains love patterns. They love stories. So entertain your brain. What can you give it that makes it worthy of hanging on to stuff? And these are things that you have in private. They're not things that you have to share. I'm, really giving way too much here. So let's have a look at the different types of mnemonics or memory devices that can assist you in name recall specifically. So different mnemonics, there's acronyms and acrostics, chunking, method of low key, songs and rhymes and association. So acronyms and acrostics, we use them every day. In the corporate environment, we use them. SMART goals, I've popped up there on one. We're just using the words SMART, measurable, achievable, relevant and timely, to create an acronym that helps us remember what SMART goals actually entail. An acrostic is where you would create a sentence out of the first letter of every word. If you've ever played music, learnt to read music, to learn the notes, every good boy deserves fruit. So that is an acrostic mnemonic device to help us remember the scale of the notes. Chunking is another mnemonic device, typically around phone numbers. I know it's some people like to remember numbers in blocks of 4, some people in blocks of 3, some people in blocks of 2. I know when someone reads out my tax file number to me in blocks of 4, it really throws me because I chunk it down in blocks of 3. So chunking is a way of reducing and recalling. Now, method of low-key, you might have heard the term memory palace. It's a place in your mind where you can store information that you need to remember. Now, a basic palace could be your bedroom, but larger palaces can be based on a walk to the corner store or your entire city. But the idea is you take chunks of information and you store them in places that you are very familiar with. It can be used for names and people, but more often for large tracts of information. Songs and rhymes. You will all remember A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. So that's a way we've used a song to remember the alphabet. Also, the months of the year. 30 days has September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 30, 31, 32, blah, blah, blah. So songs and rhymes are great mnemonic devices to help us recall and retrieve memories. And finally, association, which is the big one we're really going to play with when it comes to name recall. things that sound or look like. So I want to share another one of mine when it comes to names. So here are two friends of mine. Okay, now I have two friends, a gay couple, Bill and Gary. I've known them for about 30-something years, and I met them on a dance floor in a nightclub in London, probably an overshare, back in the early 90s. And at the time, I just couldn't figure out which one was Bill and which one was Gary. I just would get it wrong all the time in those first kind of few months of hanging out with them. And so I finally cracked the code and found a device to help me remember which one was Bill and which one was Gary. Now, this one didn't have anything to do with the fact that Bill was larger, but he was taller. So who knows this ice cream? The Bubble-O Bill. So that is quite literally how I learned to differentiate between Bill and Gary, Bubble-O Bill. They actually don't know that. So maybe they'll find out after today. Who knows? But it doesn't matter. It can be a word that fits with a person. There's a girl at my gym, Sally. She's very tall. She's very slim. Skinny Sally, slim Sally, scrawny Sally, svelte Sally. It doesn't matter. You choose, again, you choose your own adventure. So let's have a little bit of a play here. I've got 4 images of people on the screen, and they have names. There's a visual with each of them, and there's no pressure. You don't have to put it into, you don't have to pop it into chat, but if you want to, does anything jump out that might help you connect the name with the person? Okay, we've got something coming up in the chat here. Dirty David. Nice. Thanks, Rob. Mine with this one was Davy with gravy. So Gravy Davy. We've got some more here. Smiley Sandra, Salad Stuart, yeah, Sushi Sandra. Fantastic. Excellent. So you guys get this. It's not rocket science, which is so great. Dave, idiot. Judgy Judith. Yes, when I looked at Judith, I thought Judge Judy, because of the way she was sort of looking at me in that imperious way. I was like, oh, Judge Judy, maybe she's judgmental. And again, you wouldn't say this to these people, but it's just a little play for you to help connect. So folks, we are at the end, pretty much the end of our adventure here together. So let's do a little bit of a recap. And so when it comes to names, don't be one of the 9 out of 10 who have labeled themselves as just being terrible, because we are hardwired to respond favorably to our names. And as a relationship builder, as a way to make great impressions, as a way to build great rapport, remembering names is a worthwhile investment because it doesn't cost you anything. Even turning up today didn't cost you anything. So what can you use? You can use the 3 musketeers of memory. You can use find a motivation. What's your give a shit factor? What's your gas factor going in? And remember, it doesn't have to be based in reality. How are you going to focus? How are you going to get out of the transit lounge so that you can be present and in the moment? You know, has your stress escalated and you need to ground, orient, and breathe? Or do you just need to turn off your mobile phone, turn off your notifications, make sure that you're looking at the person that you're actually speaking to? Whatever it is, your ability to get present will elevate those higher thinking abilities. And finally, devices, mnemonics. Get absurd, get funny, get crazy, go nuts. Choose your own adventure. So folks, is it simple? Yes, this stuff isn't rocket science. Is it easy? Well, it depends on how much you want it and how much you are prepared to practice. So folks, we are at the end now. And so what I want to say is go get 'em, ninja. So I hope you've enjoyed today's webinar on